It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China.
China. And now we're supposed to believe he's buddies with Xi Jinping. Same guy who sanctioned Russia. Same guy who was the only president, by the way, to sanction oligarchs' companies in Russia. He's buddies with Putin. No, he's buddies with Xi Jinping. Also, he's racist against Chinese people. I'll make the references available, as I always do. But I'm going to disabuse you of this notion, if you believe it, that Donald Trump cozies up to, creates alliances with, or in any way favors dictators. That's what the left wants you to believe, just like they wanted you to believe that dictators favor Donald Trump because Putin something, Russiagate, all about this fusion GP, all right, Steele dossier. It's remedial. But now they're trying to say, actually, it's not them who want Trump. It's Trump who wants them because he's a fascist at heart, so he prefers dictators. It's not true, but listen to their argument.
Donald Trump attacking constantly democratically elected leaders in Europe in the first term, and then saying extraordinarily nice things about dictators like Vladimir Putin, autocrats like Orban in Hungary.
They're Putin, this bully, this dictator who Donald Trump seems to be interested in finding friendship with.
We have a president who is turning his back on democracy and allying us with authoritarianism.
The dictator.
Honeymoon in the USSR, for those who forgot.
Think of as a comrade in arms.
Everybody watches President Trump become a lapdog for a brutal dictator in Moscow.
Clearly, Donald Trump has some bromance with this dictator in the Kremlin.
Well, don't let this can I'm about to kick hit you in the teeth because, honestly, the more we did some digging, these claims couldn't be further from the truth in direct comparison to previous presidents. It's time for Claim Truth. And they cycle through different dictators depending on what is the biggest concern that's more effective in fear-mongering at that time. Let's start with Russia. The claim, you've heard this quite a bit, is that President Trump, we'll make it one more time because I can't stand this lady, Trump is Putin's hoe.
If you could tell Donald Trump anything tonight, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to grow a spine and stop being Putin's hoe.
But when did you stop growing yours? You're like 4'2".
Scoliosis. Come on, give her a break.
Yeah. Also, hold on a second. I just want to make sure that I'm clear, Crockett. Donald Trump, President Trump, is the hoe?
Hey everyone, so it is State of the Disunion Day at the U.S. Capitol. It is your Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. First they said that I had a husband. No husband, y'all. If y'all just think every black girl that comes to Congress brings a husband who has to live off of, that's not what it is, okay?
Right.
No husband, never been married, never been engaged, all right?
If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would you say?
Off. Like, I have to live a very poor life right now, right? Like,
and you could be getting paid.
I could be getting paid. I made more money before. I will make more money after. But right now, I am living not in the overflow.
They tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
And I'm not saying that the founding fathers, obviously they were primarily white, and I'm not saying that they didn't want any representatives who were not white. But Crockett would make a strong case. Everything.
I think I heard something crash out.
Is antithetical to America. I'm sorry. If you were an alien who landed and you thought that represented the American people, I mean, that would be a great disservice to the American people. It's the worst. It's the worst kind of representation that the United States can have. And she calls him a hoe. Donald Trump, by the way, responded on Truth Social with, actually, you're the hoe and I was Kang, is what he said. I have it right here. I don't have it up. You have to speak their language.
We'll look for the reference, yeah.
Here's the truth, all right? Donald Trump has been tougher on Russia than any president since, and arguably including Reagan. Let me give you a timeline. References available. In 2018, slapped some major sanctions on 7 Russian oligarchs, 12 Russian companies, 17 government officials. The Trump Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, said, Russian oligarchs and elites who profit from this corrupt system will no longer be insulated from the consequences of their government's destabilizing activities. From 2017 to 2019, Donald Trump sold anti-tank Javelin missiles to Ukraine. Barack Obama never did. He sold them onesies.
Really?
Sheets.
Oh. It's different, yeah.
Yeah.
It's cold in Ukraine.
2019, President Trump pulled out of the INF, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Russia, and he accused Russia very blatantly of violating the treaty with a new missile in 2019. And this is a big one. This is one that really bothers and probably bothers you, and you may not necessarily be able to articulate it. Well, here, now you will be. 2019, he sanctioned Nord Stream 2. Remember when Germans laughed at President Trump when he said that, hey, you guys are actually too dependent on Russia? They laughed. Here.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers.
That's so silly.
It has been the formal policy
Look
of
at my
our
mushroom
country
cat.
since President Monroe that we reject the interference of foreign nations in this hemisphere and in our own affairs.
He's not just talking about virtue signaling. He's actually offering some steps to take. You're too dependent on Russia.
Yes.
Oh, silly American, don't you know in a globalized world, the Cold War called, they want their policy back. Oh, that's right. You guys spend more money, all of Europe, come on, you spend more money purchasing Russian energy than you gave to Ukraine collectively. Who's laughing now, you kraut pricks?
Yeah, didn't Joe Biden remove some of the sanctions on Nord Stream and immediately put them in place on Keystone XL by canceling the first thing he did? Yeah.
Well, that'll show Russia.
But
that'll show
Trump.
That'll show them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And even now, by the way, the media still lies about this, just like the Russia, right, the Steele dossier. Pete Hegseth did not tell the Pentagon to stop reporting on Russian cyber threats. President Trump actually wrote this on Truth Social on Monday. He said, the only president who gave none of Ukraine's land to Putin's Russia is President Donald J. Trump. Me. Remember that when the weak and ineffective Democrats criticize and the fake news gladly puts out anything they say. And if anyone else out there tells you that President Trump's rhetoric, let alone his policies, are too friendly toward Russia, again, I always tell you, facts don't exist in a vacuum, right? Context is critically important. And it's not just President Trump versus Biden. It's President Trump versus every president, and by the way, most presidential candidates who came before him in the preceding 2 decades.
Mr. General Secretary, though my pronunciation may give you difficulty, dovayai no provayai. Trust but verify.
Назначение этого... На каждой встрече вы это повторяете. You repeat that at every meeting.
Mr. Putin he's very smart.
Well, you know him better than most people.
Yeah, I do.
What was he like behind closed doors, away from, the sort of the public utterances?
Smart and remarkably, we had a really good, blunt relationship.
How blunt?
Brutally blunt.
Ever fisticuffs?
No, but I think the right strategy most of the time is, but it's frustrating to people in your line of work. You should be brutally honest with people in private. And then if you want them to help you, try to avoid embarrassing them in public.
Right. My last election, yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility.
That's Medvedev, when him and Putin swapped for a few years.
And that's 2012.
That's right, it was 2012.
I wanted to present you with a little gift, which represents what President Obama and Vice President Biden and I have been saying. And that is, we want to reset our relationship.
Let's do it together.
So we will do it together, okay?
Thank you, bitch.
Asked, what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America? You said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda. You said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back.
I'll answer the question. I looked the man in the eye. I found it to be very straightforward and trustworthy. We had a very good dialogue. I was able to get a sense of his soul. He's a man deeply committed to his country and the best interests of his country. And I appreciated so very much the frank dialogue.
He didn't quite explain it. I looked into his soul. I saw a soul man.
Saw a man that was scared.
That's right. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Soul man.
Saw a man that hates terror.
That's right.
I have the reset button, by the way.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I think the
it
Russians
doesn't work
took
at
the
all.
batteries, but
they always
probably
do
for
stuff
some
like
kind of electric Russian nesting doll or javelins or something. I don't know.
Let's blame the Chinese because batteries not included. And by the way, also we don't have it in that montage, but Bernie Sanders, he honeymooned in the USSR.
Yeah.
Just to make it clear, what he's complaining about when he complains about Putin is that today's Russia isn't communist enough. Does that give you some context? Maybe it's a good thing, by the way, that we actually saw some of W's advice there, because he's actually now been more active as an ex-president, offering advice on everything, including foreign diplomats.
Here's some advice. As for foreign diplomats, you meet people from all different walks of life. And it's important to remember when you meet these esteemed dignitaries that you show respect. But when you meet some of our Muslim neighbors to the east, do not shake their hand. They don't use toilet paper. When you're shaking the hand of the Sultan of Siam, you're squeezing a Charmin. I prefer to go with a fist bump.
If nothing else, he was pragmatic.
It's absolutely true.
He's got solutions.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And by the way, to the cultures that still wipe with your hand, it's 2025. It's gross.
Recently I saw a new method of wiping in the Philippines.
No.
We're not going to show it on air, obviously, but
What, is it with another Filipino?
you know what? I'll post it on X after this.
No.
Follow me on X, not Firestein. Follow me on X. I'll post it.
I don't think you should. I think it's a violation of some policies.
He found it on X.
That's where I saw it.
I'm sure it's America's fault somehow
Yes,
that these people have not considered toilet paper or a hose.
Well, this video is technically a hose.
Yeah, technically.
I know the one you're talking.
He's a Filipino hoser.
Say that. I get it. Yeah.
I feel like I'm left out.
Yeah. Well,
We'll
you
play it in
wanna
Mud
be on
Club.
this
Yes,
one.
I'm the only one. Okay, play it in Mud Club. All right.
Angry, I know it.
So let's move on from Putin to China.
If that gets better.
If you can believe it, the left is actually trying to claim that President Trump is actually friends with, he's cozying up to, because he's a dictator, Xi Jinping.
Truly effusive praise for authoritarian leaders from former President Donald Trump during an interview last night on Fox News. Here's what he said.
They're all top of the line. Our guy's not top of the line. Never was. These are top of the line people at the top of their game. President Xi is a brilliant man. If you went all over Hollywood to look for somebody to play the role of President Xi, you couldn't find it. There's nobody like that. The look, the brain, the whole thing. We had a great relationship.
It takes your breath away. I mean, Joe,
It
he's
really does.
talking about Xi like a matinee idol, the Hollywood look, the brains, all of it.
Okay, here's the truth. You already know this, but President Trump is the first president in our lifetime to take the threat of China seriously. He's actually the only person, I would say, on our national stage who has highlighted it. Before President Trump, everyone just assumed it was inevitable that China was going to be the next great superpower, that the U.S. currency was no longer going to be used as standard. Look, let me provide some context here. He is commenting there on the intellect. Right? That's the qualifier of Xi Jinping. Same thing with Putin when he says he's effective as a leader. He's been effective in implementing his agenda. That's discussing their ability. When it comes to the policies and assessing the character, very different, and he's remarkably consistent. You need to assume that your opponent is good. It was like Georges St. Pierre. Every person he ever faced, Georges St. Pierre, guy didn't lose a round, I think, for half a decade. Every single opponent, he's the most dangerous opponent I've ever faced. He's very dangerous. I'm taking him very serious. And it got to the point where he cleared out the division twice, where you could see him making it up for some of the fighters. He'd go from like, oh, Josh Koscheck is dangerous. He has many titles. He has the best takedown percentage. You're like, okay, that makes sense. Then he's fighting a guy like Dan Hardy. He's like, he's the most dangerous man I ever faced because this guy have nothing to lose. And he's kind of right. He would condition himself to prepare for the best. Let's go to how President Donald Trump has actually addressed China. Here's Donald Trump in 2011. Back then it was a tweet. He tweeted out, "China is neither an ally or a friend. They want to beat us and our own country." 2015. President Trump excoriated China in an interview with George Stephanopoulos, and he wasn't too thrilled about it.
When you see China, these are fierce people in terms of negotiation. They want to take your throat out. They want to cut you apart. These are tough people. I've dealt with them all my life.
In your book, you call China an enemy. Why is it okay to do business with an enemy?
Because it's an economic enemy, because they've taken advantage of us like nobody in history. It's the greatest theft in the history of the world, what they've done to the United States.
So, pretty clear. Can't refer to them as an enemy. Why do you have to refer to them as an enemy? Why do you have to say that Xi Jinping is smart?
Because I don't want to underestimate my enemy.
Sorry, can't say enemy. Our colleague is middling intelligence. Like, what do you? This is how you know it's just about scoring political points. Does anyone comment below? Does anyone doubt for a second that there has not been in our lifetime? Really, I would argue, in the second half of the 20th century, a president as tough on China. Anyone want to argue that? See, he's saying, I think he's smart, and then he's making a judgment on the actions. It's theft. Intellect? Theft. Anyone out there think Hitler was dumb? Hitler bad, just to be clear. Hitler bad. Not a fan of Hitler. Hitler is bad. You were a little late, Tool Man. Left me out to dry there. But you think he's dumb? I don't. Does that make me a Nazi? Take a break from calling me a Zionist shill if you want to accuse me of being a Nazi.
But just rotate back and forth.
In 2018, he launched a trade war against China. Right? The same thing that people are complaining about now. 2020, he called out China for its crackdown and violation of human rights in Hong Kong.
Today I signed legislation and an executive order to hold China accountable for its oppressive actions against the people of Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Autonomy Act, which I signed this afternoon, passed unanimously through Congress. This law gives my administration powerful new tools to hold responsible the individuals and the entities involved in extinguishing Hong Kong's freedom. We've all watched what happened. Not a good situation.
Not to mention, remember in 2020, it's not that just that Donald Trump was calling out China, it's that he was being attacked by the left for calling out China. You guys know that the Kung Flu fighting video we did during COVID, it was banned because it was considered it was Asian hate or something like that. People said that it was racist for Donald Trump to call out China because he was the only one doing it, saying, hey, this country is responsible for spreading COVID.
You keep calling this the Chinese virus. There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China.
China. And now we're supposed to believe he's buddies with Xi Jinping. Same guy who sanctioned Russia. Same guy who was the only president, by the way, to sanction oligarchs' companies in Russia. He's buddies with Putin. No, he's buddies with Xi Jinping. Also, he's racist against Chinese people. Again, in 2024, March.
Could be an argument that Xi Jinping hates Chinese people, too.
Yeah, it could be argued. It definitely could be argued. Was it 2024 that he levied? I don't think that makes sense. Is it? I'm trying to remember the date. You guys can check the link there at Reuters. He levied 10% tariffs on Chinese imports on top of an already existing 10%. Okay. Now, today, he's looking at $10 billion in weapon sales to Taiwan. Don't know if you know, that's not something the Chinese are a huge fan of. Also makes it tough for him to be racist because the Taiwan are also Asian. The Taiwanese, believe me, I know. I said the Taiwan, but I did it deliberately. Tens of billions of sales in his first term, too, so he's been doing this pretty consistently. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. Remember, George H.W. Bush pretty much ignored Tiananmen Square. That was a big thing. Bill Clinton pushed for China to join the WTO, and then George W. Bush basically allowed China into the WTO. Okay? Now, here's another one, because this is the new claim. And you can expect more of this. Again, they just shift it. They shift it every time. Anytime there's a fascist or dictator, they want you to believe that Donald Trump is friends with them. And here's the problem. Go look at Reddit politics. The left believes it. The left believes it. You can go back in a time machine and see the biggest leftist websites that exist. Go to the comment section and see them accusing Donald Trump of being racist against the Chinese. And now see these people believing with their whole heart that he's buddies with Xi Jinping solely because he's a dictator. And the left
If he was, Taiwan would already be China.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be an extension of the CHIPS Act or a modification of the CHIPS Act, bringing chips over here from Taiwan. None of that would exist.
No, exactly right. Yeah, there's no consistency. And now they want you to believe, here's the next claim. This is going to be the new one. Watch. That President Trump is actually buddies with Iran.
What?
Yeah, because here's why. Because he gutted USAID.
How?
Bring it up. That's Yahoo and AP. Bring it up right there. Trump cuts to foreign aid could benefit position in Iran. Iran praises U.S. for cutting U.S. foreign aid. Okay, fine. Maybe someone in Iran likes that we cut Serbian lesbian classes.
I don't think if Iran saw that headline, I don't think they would agree that they are praising the U.S.
Right.
How much did they hate the Iranian Sesame Street that we gave them?
Well, I think it was Iraq.
Oh, was it Iraq?
It was Iraq.
It was Iraq,
yeah.
Which makes more sense.
Maybe they're just mad that they didn't get one.
That's true.
Hey, what?
Yeah, admonish me.
You don't think we want
So
Elmo on
sick.
ice? Here's the truth.
Elmo on ice.
Here's the truth. President Trump has always and will always be much harder on Iran and the Islamic regime there than any Democrat and largely most Republicans. Though most Republicans, that's one thing the party has been pretty consistent on. 2017. People may not remember this when the left was accusing Donald Trump of being Islamophobic because he had the Muslim travel ban. Iran was one of those countries. Country with terrorists. 2018, he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. Remember that deal that was signed with Obama that we all thought was a disaster?
Lots of cash.
Barack Obama, $1.7 billion approximately in cash was given to Iran by Barack Obama from 2018 to 2021. Donald Trump imposed a total of 1,500 sanctions against Iran, give or take. According to Iran's foreign minister, that cost their economy about $1 trillion. Wow. I'm not seeing the buddy cop film. 2020, you ordered a strike.
The money was weighing them down.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for letting us get rid of that $1 trillion.
Remember Soleimani? Yeah,
Yep.
Donald Trump was the one who ordered the strike that killed Soleimani.
Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qasem Soleimani. Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him.
Let's move
That was
on.
polite.
Yeah, let's move on to Venezuela. I know you're going to say, what? No, I'm telling you, the left is now claiming, and yes, this includes turncoats, by the way, because former Trump White House advisor Olivia Troy has claimed, and then it gets syndicated in the media, that President Trump admired Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. Now, here's the thing. I know we're scraping the bottom of the barrel and the arguments are getting paper thin. I get it. We're just dealing with he said, she said, a former Trump advisor in the White House, a woman, saying that he admired. But again, you have to remember that front page news and all of cable news, remember they were covering Bitch Cassidy when she was saying, and Donald Trump jerked the wheel. That's all they need to run on, and you're seeing the headlines. He admired Nicolas Maduro. Here's the truth, okay? References available. President Trump has been Maduro's biggest enemy on the international stage. It's not even close. In 2017, the Trump administration cut off Venezuela's government and their state oil racket, if you want to say it, the state government-run oil racket. Basically, eliminated any cooperation between them and U.S. markets. He squeezed them between 2017 and 2019. The sanctions cost their state oil racket $30 billion alone. 2019, President Trump froze Venezuelan assets in the United States. And in 2024, while he was campaigning, Trump specifically said this of Maduro: I know it very well, and Venezuela is right now being run by a dictator. He even, by the way, revoked the ability of Chevron to import Venezuelan oil. Did that this year. Doesn't exist in a vacuum. In other words, okay, do we have something to compare it to? They're accusing Donald Trump of being supportive of a dictatorial regime in Venezuela. Okay, let's go back to Biden. He removed the sanctions on Venezuelan exports ahead of their elections. And if you want to know how the left felt about Maduro, well, have you forgotten how the left felt about Chavez, whether it was Oliver Stone or Sean Penn? This should never go away because it shows how, let's just say how morally, how devoid of any morals or intellect the leftist celebrity is. Here's Sean Penn fawning over Chavez during the Obama years.
So I just want to say that from my
That's my karate instructor.
American point of view,
Quiero decir desde mi muy americano punto de vista
of my friend President Chavez,
a mi amigo el presidente Hugo Chávez,
it is only possible to be so inspiring as he is.
Homo.
As a two-way street.
By the way, do you think Zelensky still has his Oscar, or did he pawn it?
It's a good question.
He did leave it in Ukraine for him because he's like, here, this should provide courage.
And by the way,
I didn't know the actor from I Am Sam actually was retarded.
Yes, exactly.
That's representation. I'm for it.
And he freaks out about IHOP. And it's not just him. Anita Dunn said she was inspired by Mao. Bernie Sanders said that the bread lines were a good thing. He praised Venezuela. This doesn't exist in a vacuum. Donald Trump really tough on all of these dictators, all of these regimes. It's been remarkable if you look at the policy. Don't just read a quote where he said, "Oh, this person's pretty smart." Well, yeah. Evil autocratic regimes typically have someone at the helm who's relatively smart. They have to be clever enough to manipulate an entire population of people. And, by the way, these same dictators, they always manipulate people through what? Greed. They promise them free stuff. That's what Maduro has in common with Xi Jinping and Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or Tim Walz. They always manipulate people by saying, actually, I'm going to give you free stuff. You're going to have to give up some of your rights. Contrast with Donald Trump saying, hey, there might be some growing pains here because we need to become more independent of some of our international ties. Oh, and by the way, more rights. Guns, yep. Speech, keep it. It's the exact opposite. When the left accuses you, and yes, when they accuse Donald Trump, they are accusing you, a conservative, populist, libertarian, they're accusing all of you at large of exactly what it is that they do. When they accuse you, when they accuse Donald Trump of something, just remember this, they're telling on themselves. So when they say Donald Trump is a fascist dictator, you know exactly what they're doing.
They call him Hitler, a dictator, a Putin lover, and an oppressor.
Now, Putin called me a genius, by the way.
Hey, I think I've heard this one. But he's a joker, not mediocre. He's a power broker.
I know the best deal makers.
He owns the lip second to none.
America is back.
This has been Claim Truth. Hey, if you like this video, you're still here, click there. Click there to watch more rebuttals, takedowns, and claim and truth videos where they're pretty self-explanatory in the title. I don't know what the thumbnail is. It's not salacious, is it? Maybe a little. That's ideal.